Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder Weather here. We've got several rounds of severe storms and a lot of heat, including record heat, as well as this tropical low that has finally moved ashore. So let's start off with the overall satellite picture and go over the details with you. You can actually see where all the clearing skies are. That is under this ridge of high pressure. You've got a lot of sinking air and a lot of heat under that ridge as well, including some record heat. But underneath that, there is this tropical low that has finally moved inland, and with it, it spun up some very heavy rain, including we had this stalled system last night. It started about 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday down there in Fort Lauderdale, and this system literally just parked itself and stalled and dumped 3-inch per hour rainfall rates for like 7 to 8 hours straight. They ended up with down there in Fort Lauderdale 22 inches in just in a matter of 7 to 8 hours, and overall the 24-hour rain total was nearly 26 inches. It's incredible what unfolded. Major flooding down there in a very isolated event down there in Fort Lauderdale. In fact, the airport was actually closed until noon today. So man, they've been dealing with a lot of heavy rain down there. But yes, this system is going to be finally on the move. This northerly flow has been kind of inhibiting a lot of shower activity, a lot of severe weather, and stop the southerly flow. But that's going to be changing over the next couple of days as this low pressure will be finally moving away. But like I mentioned, underneath that, we've got a lot of red on the map, and that red depicts a lot of heat of well above average temperatures for this time of year. In fact, it hit 88 degrees yesterday in Minneapolis. Now that heat has shifted off into the east, and even New York City's checking in at 88 today. They could actually, in fact, touch 90 degrees later on this afternoon. But you can see where it's raining down there in a good part of the southeast, and that's where the cooler and chillier air, as well as in the Pacific Northwest, where winter is still continuing to hang on for them. But yes, underneath that, we do have that tornado watch with this system coming in place. In fact, they have actually upgraded to enhanced risk, and there's a part here that does in fact have a 10% hatched risk for some potential strong tornadoes within this sector and southeastern portions of Georgia. This is that tropical type system that have moved inland. So don't be surprised. You could get an isolated spin up or two down here in this region between now and 7 o'clock. And some of these could be some larger hail producers as well. So definitely be on high alert through that 7 o'clock time frame down there in southeastern portions of Georgia. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. It's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. So let's take a look at the overall precipitation over the next 48 hours. And here's that system that's finally moved ashore. It's going to be continue to move those rain bands further and further inland. This is where they've got that tornado watch today through 7 o'clock. But as we go into tomorrow, that rain shaft will be continue to lift up to the northeast, including in parts of South Carolina, as well as into North Carolina, and get all the way up into portions of Virginia. This does include portions of tomorrow. Notice there's not much rain to speak of underneath that high resolution guidance in portions of Texas and the portions of Oklahoma, and even actually portions of Kansas. In fact, we do have a marginal to slight risk for severe weather in those regions. This is what's labeled. It's been labeled as a, basically a conditional risk in these areas, meaning we have a very strong capping inversion. And in fact, they've been every update, the SPC has been eliminating the slight risk on the southern flank of this system, because again, with every update, the dominant, capping inversion should be in place, should help limit any type of storm possibility. They just keep leaving it in there just in case if one of those pop above the boundary layer and has that 10 to 20% probability of producing maybe an isolated storm, and those could be some larger hail producers. But the main area of concern would probably be further up into northern portions of Kansas, as well as into Nebraska, would be more likely for this area to pop into the early afternoon, late evening time frame into this region. Because if we take a look at the latest, even the HRRR guidance of the actual capping inversion, it still insists a pretty stout cap in these regions through tomorrow afternoon into the evening time frame. So I'm not really expecting much. That's why most mesoscale guidance doesn't really have this. They just keep leaving it into the picture because, yes, the dynamics are favorable, but just in case one of those actually is helping to penetrate that boundary layer, they could turn severe fairly quickly in that type of environment. And if it does occur, that's why they have at least the slight and marginal risk in place. And those could be some very isolated, discrete, large hail type producers in that atmosphere. But here's the latest European guidance. More likely what's going to happen is we could be looking at some elevated showers within this region. That means basically stuff that forms on top of the boundary layer, which typically is not really severe. So this is probably more likely, if it's even going to be squeezing anything out of that atmosphere, would be more likely those elevated type varieties down in this region into portions of Texas, into Oklahoma, a little bit more probably surface based as you get further north into Kansas, and especially probably into Nebraska here. At the same time, there's that low pressure center that was hanging out in the Gulf would be finally moving inland and spreading those rain bands over the Carolinas into Virginia areas, as well as into West Virginia. But going into Saturday, things get a little bit different because we've got a lot more moisture to tap into. We got a lot of higher dew points, and we don't have the capping inversion that we'll have over the central part of the U.S. Now that it gets into East Texas, into portions of Louisiana, into Arkansas, back into Missouri, portions of Illinois, with those dew points creeping into 60, basically in the central portions of Illinois. That puts that area into the play of those severe storms heading into that Saturday time frame, really getting its act together likely into the later evening. Looks like a later event with this particular system, starting into East Texas, but then becoming an overnight threat into Louisiana, into Arkansas, portions of Missouri, and the southern portions of Illinois. That would include portions of western Tennessee, and really with further updates, I would not be surprised this actually gets extended even further into portions of Wisconsin, with those dew points creeping all the way pretty high up there into the middle portions of Wisconsin. So don't let your guard down. Even if you live up there, you still could get some of those stronger thunderstorms into the later evening time frame. There's that low pressure center right there in the portions of Illinois here. Pretty bona fide low pressure. It's going to be breaking the cap easily in this area, so there's going to be a lot more moisture to work with, tapping into some of those above average sea surface anomalies into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's going to be trying to wrap around. I mean, the NAM model's pretty bullish on this cold core. I don't think it actually gets this cold, but it keeps insisting that it's going to drop these temperatures and pull down some of that colder air with that dynamic cooling type aspect with this particular system. It would have a long ways to go to do that because there's so much difference between the global guidance and the mesoscale guidance right now as far as temperatures. That makes a huge difference if it's going to be rain or snow. And it's the middle of April, guys. You're probably not going to see snow in this particular atmosphere heading into Missouri, but it's kind of maybe fun to look at. And if it does happen in some 38-degree madness, it's just going to be nice to look at and then, of course, melt on contact if you happen to see some snowflakes flying. But yes, the main concern would be those stronger to severe thunderstorms, even when we go into the day on Sunday as well. But look at the temperatures back behind that with that low pressure center. This is the NAM model. Again, this is really bullish, trying to insist. And this is actually in the middle of the afternoon. This is not likely to happen. I mean, but that's why it has snow with this system, because it has the temperature like 33, 34, 35 degrees at like 6 o'clock on Sunday night. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. It would take a lot of room to wiggle down to get to those type temperatures, even to produce snow in that type of atmosphere. But nonetheless, that's what the model is saying, but it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. So either way, we go head to the Euro guidance. What's actually more probability is heading up into Michigan, heading up into the upper PA areas. Those, yes, I agree. Those areas are going to get the snow. And where areas where you're in the 80s just yesterday into Michigan, you're going to be seeing snow flying by the time we head into Monday afternoon. So it's going to be a quick flip of, from basically summer to back to winter again, with some snow following those into those regions as that area low pressure are going to be lifting up into the northeast and raining underneath that 90-degree temperatures that you're going to be seeing today in New York City. You're going to be cooling off a good spell by the time we head into your Monday afternoon. And as we go into Tuesday, again, that area low pressure keeps kind of spinning. It kind of more or less stalls a little bit over Canada, of course, leaving that colder air around a little bit longer. So it's going to increase those snow amounts into this region as we head into your into your Tuesday morning time frame. But going into Wednesday, again, the middle part of the country continues to crank up. I mean, where this area really hasn't had much rain in the last couple of weeks, technically, we're going to be starting to heat up that atmosphere. 10, 15, almost 20 degrees above average temperatures. Will we see another troughing system comes in back into the Pacific Northwest? And as that continues to push, we're going to see that ridge really start to expand and to develop well above average temperature anomalies in the central part of the US. And we're trying to squeeze out any precipitation again on Thursday. This won't be until a week from now into that atmosphere. And it's going to be hard pressed because literally the next 7 days has a donut right here in a good part of the Southwest and much of Oklahoma and really kind of much of Texas. I mean, it's going to be fighting that cap inversion. And it's going to be probably fighting that cap inversion again on Thursday. Going into next week, we've got a pretty dominant route happening up here in West Texas, Western Oklahoma, Western Kansas. And as these systems come across, it kind of runs into that capping inversion as you have that lift come up into that atmosphere. And that's what's kind of happening. It's not really until it moves out into portions of East Texas heading into Louisiana that you have a little bit more Gulf moisture to work with, and it's got a little bit more amplitude to be more severe. But here's the latest NAM. Like I mentioned, with those colder temperatures, it's trying to say, hey, it's going to snow in these neck of the woods, but that's not going to happen. So it's going to be fun to look at, but that's not likely to happen. What's likely going to happen is no snow in this region, but more snow heading up into portions of Wisconsin, getting into Michigan. But most of the snow is going to be up into the upper PA, into Canada, heading into the to the middle of the month, starting your third week of April there. But going into Thursday, like I mentioned, we've got another system, another pretty good jet going to be dipping across the middle of the country. But what we're going to run into again is probably another capping inversion down here in West Texas. And it's not really until we get into the afternoon hours on Thursday, this will be next week, that we probably have a higher probability of breaking the cap in these regions into East Texas, into Louisiana, into Arkansas, into Missouri, back into Iowa again, with another probability of a severe weather setup going into next week by the end of next week. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.